Now we're talking about the customer. Let's back up. Let's talk about the salesperson. What is their style? Are they like super knowledgeable and always do what they say they're going to do? Like when they say, I'll follow up with a proposal, they do. By and large, that means they're probably not great at social interaction. They're really good at details, but not at social interaction. Or are you that happy, effervescent person that, on the door, you just like, oh, I love a Tesla. Wow, you got a Tesla. That's a great car. How long have you had that car? Oh, what a great dog. Everything is social. Then by and large, you're going to massively overcommit and likely not follow up on anything. So the bottom line is everybody has, strengths and a corresponding area where they need to learn some new skills.
Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent up that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from achieving your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop. Hey, everybody, I want to welcome Jim Ryerson. Jim and I have worked together for a number of years. Really enjoy Jim, and I think you will too. Jim started a selling career with one of America's most admired corporations that was ranked among the top 25 sales forces in the country by Sales and Marketing magazine. After a successful career, he launched Sales Octane and began using his gifts to train sales forces globally. His presentations combine psychology of selling with the fundamentals of selling to equip sales professionals with the skills needed to succeed. Referred to as Mr. Likeability, Jim has created a formula for success that leverages the natural strengths, talents of sales professionals to create selling machines. Not only is he that, he's the author of 4 books. So I have that in common with Jim, except I'm a little bit behind. But I personally use in my company the first 100 days of selling and the first 100 days of in-home selling. Selling by the book today, timeless wisdom in a referral-based world, and selling in a distracted world. Jim, in his most recent endeavors, has producing custom sales training videos where he infuses his Sales Octane hyper-focused approach with client-specific language. This blend maintains the look and feel of the hyper-focused sales training videos on the Shot of Octane app and allows clients to use the Octane selfie to train and accelerate sales performance. Without any more ado, I welcome Jim Ryerson. And Alan, we have to always start out with cheers to Jim.
Cheers, Jim.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Great.
Happy to have you.
Jim, I put that long bio in there, but I've known you for a number of years. Love the passion that you bring around sales training and what you did. But why don't you just tell us a little bit more? The audience that we were pretty much serving are people who left corporate America to start their own. So you did that. Why don't you talk about how you did that and where you're at today?
First of all, I was 25 years with a Fortune 500 company. I was in the sales side of the business. After 9/11, our business was hit pretty bad. And I had this epiphany about I was ready to get out of corporate America. So I did some work around a book, trying to find my unique ability. Everything came back sales trainer. Little nerve-wracking because that would mean I started with just me. So I went in one day, gave them my notice, and it was an amazing moment where it was the VP of sales that I sat down with. I handed him my note, and he said, "So what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to be a sales trainer." He's like, "Jim, once you get set up, you give me a call." This is the VP of sales, by the way, of a huge corporation. And he said, "You give me a call, and we'll be your first client." So I went home that night and I told my wife, "This is going to be amazing, best decision ever." 90 days later, he got fired. And if you know anything about corporate America, if you're aligned with somebody who got fired, you basically go out the window with them. So it took almost a year for me to get my first large contract with a client. And it's been 18 years now, and the rest is history.
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, actually, I got a quick question, Jim. So you mentioned this book. Is it one that you would recommend? What do I want to be when I grow up? Kind of a book?
Yes. Matter of fact, good question. It's still in print. It's called The Unique Ability, and it was written by Dan Sullivan and a group of his folks. It's a workbook. And anytime somebody calls me up and says, I'm thinking about, starting my own company, or I'm trying to figure out what to do when I grow up, I'll suggest, a lot of times I'll even loan out my copy to them to help them become more self-aware. And we do some assessments as well. So I'll assess them in the process, give them some ideas. But it's a great book, great read.
Love that book that you said, Dan Sullivan's Unique Ability. I'm gonna have to go look that up. So you took basically a year and not any money coming in. Had you saved up to do this? Was this a plan? Or were you sitting there freaking out and telling your wife, hey, don't worry, baby, we're gonna be all right?
Actually, I've been married on this, it's been 40 years, still married. And back then she was very supportive because she saw that I had great passion around this and she believed in me. But the commitment I made to her was we had a certain amount of money in the bank. And I said, when we get within $5,000 of running out of that, then I'm gonna go look for a job. We were somewhere just north of $8,000. I mean, we burned it all the way down to about $8,000. And then I picked up that first large client, but it was almost 11 months.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate how long it takes. To talk about when it started for me, my break even was going to be 16 months, where everybody I talked to about my break even with starting a home service business was telling me, no way that happens, man. It's going to be like 24, maybe even 30 months. And I'm like, oh yeah, don't worry. I'm smarter. Yeah, they were right. It was 30 months. Of course, I started right when the recession hit, but it does. If you thought I was 90 days out from getting a check, and it turned out to be almost 12 months.
And frankly, that's why I love what I get to do. I mean, a lot of my life is spent with franchisees, and then another 50% of my life is with independent entrepreneurs. And my guess is you have both in your audience today. When you start a company, you've got to generate sales. I mean, sales covers a lot of sins. And so the folks on the call today, it's going to be one of two. You're either a salesperson and you started a company and you're really good at selling, or you came from an operational background and you've got everything going great in terms of once you get something, but you struggle with selling. So it's going to be one or the other. You're either amazing at sales or you really don't have a sales background. So, that's always the first question I have of a client is, who is your sales force? So if you're the person on the phone today and you're like, you know what, I started my own company, I'm really good at selling, then the only way you can grow your company is to do what?
I say you got to get out there and get your sales shoes on, get somebody to fulfill it, and then start training, right?
Right. You've got to get salespeople. You got to go hire salespeople. And so here's one of the challenges. And I don't know how either of you went down this road, but normally when you bring somebody in, like you're really good, Chris, at selling. I'm Alan, I've never spent any time with you, but Chris, I know you're really good at selling. You could sell anything. Now, then you hired your first salesperson that was going to expand your company. How did you train them, Chris?
Yeah, I trained him to be just like me. And he didn't have any of the skills I had and had none of the knowledge that I have. And he failed miserably.
And that's the dilemma, is a lot of times, if you are really good at selling, you'll literally tell them what to do, but that's not the way human beings learn. And number two, they may not be you. And therefore you have to figure out, what is their strength going into the sales process. So that's always been where we start, which is let's map out the sales process. So if you're an independent entrepreneur today and you're just starting out, and if you're still alive, that means you're selling something. And the key is start to map out what your sales process is and get it defined so you can actually train people. I mean, did you do that when you first started out? Did you map out your sales process?
Oh, he's just setting me up now because that's what he came in to help me do. So the answer was no, I did not have my sales process mapped out. I said, go out there, be like me, sell like me. And how come you're not closing as much as I am, man? Hey, what the heck? What's going on? Get out there and sell better.
And frankly, this is a great way to to just absolutely neuter someone's self-confidence is here, you were successful, they go out and they fail. And part of it is it's your fault. You didn't train them the way human beings need to be trained. Don't sit there and tell them, because by and large, they're not an auditory learner. You can go out, you can do assessments for free online to tell you whether you're an auditory learner, a visual learner, or a kinesthetic learner. And everybody's a blend of all three. But by and large, salespeople are not auditory learners. So stop telling people, show them what to do, give them a roadmap, and you'll have better success. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, Jim, one of the things I always like to say is you can take a donkey and give it all the training you want, but it's not going to win the Kentucky Derby. So how much does this go back to actual hiring?
A lot. And again, I like the psychology side of the sales process. And because, especially if it's in-home, which a lot of your audience is probably doing in-home related sales, by and large, you have, a husband and a wife, you have that, significant other. And only in marriage will you find, or in love, I should say, only in love do you find that opposites attract. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be opposite of your spouse, but by and large, if you're in love with somebody, you'll probably stop at this moment in the podcast and go, now that I think about it, yeah, they're different than me. So that's why, great in-home training companies will talk about the fact of you really want to have both parties at the table when you go in to sell, because the way he buys will likely be different than the way she buys. Now we're talking about the customer. Let's back up. Let's talk about the salesperson. What is their style? Are they like super knowledgeable and always do what they say they're going to do? Like when they say, I'll follow up with a proposal, they do. By and large, that means they're probably not great at social interaction. They're really good at details, but not at social interaction. Or are you that happy, effervescent person that, on the door, you just like, oh, I love a Tesla. Wow, you got a Tesla. That's a great car. How long have you had that car? Oh, what a great dog. Everything is social. Then by and large, you're going to massively overcommit and likely not follow up on anything. So the bottom line is everybody has, strengths and a corresponding area where they need to learn some new skills. And that's why when hiring, you really want to assess your new hires as to which one of those, and there's 4 different styles. I just covered 2 of them, but there are 4 different styles. What are they? What are you? What is your customer? And what do you need? And then you can train them to adapt to the situation.
So in sales, Jim, would you say everybody in sales has to be an extrovert and that social guy, life of the party? Or do you think that there are guys who can be introverted, maybe even more detail oriented, that could be in-home service professionals?
All styles are fine for selling. So when somebody calls me and they go, what should I hire, Jim? I will say, interesting question, but let me ask you some questions first. Who is your customer? What is the sales process? Like I was working with a company down in your neck of the woods, and the sales cycle is 5 years. I will tell you, if you're an extroverted, effervescent, life of the party person, you can't manage a 5-year sales process. No. It'll kill you. So that was, the duration of the sale. The customer that you're talking to. I mean, I failed miserably at one role that I had in sales for about a year. And I took it very personally because I had been successful in selling, but I took this opportunity for a year to work with this client, but I was selling to engineers. It was brutal. Yeah. They never smiled. They never gave me any positive affirmation. They took forever to make a decision. They were massively loyal to their current provider. I thought it was me. Well, it was me. It was my expectations of a fast sale and a lot of fun and having a good time and very relational. Different strokes, different folks. I left that company, went into the other route and then had a lot of success. So you really have to know what your customer is, what the sales cycle is, what the product is. But all saying all that, we've assessed over 6,800 salespeople. And that's why I wrote the book, Execute: Selling in a Distracted World, because what we found was that well over 60% of the salespeople that have come through the assessments do have that extroverted, people-oriented tendency. That might just be a coincidence, but that's what we're seeing. I do believe that is changing now because of the internet. Most customers are, they're probably 60, 70% of the way through the buying decision before they will engage with a human being. So the old days of, knocking on doors and going to networking events and, just shaking hands and that kind of thing, that's becoming less. So non-extroverted or more detail-oriented, I think, is becoming more relevant in the sales process.
So it sounds to me like if I were a company that was interested in your services, I would want to bring you on before I hired my sales staff.
You would want to define what you're looking for. And then, yes, one of the things that we do is we provide different assessment tools to figure out how do you vet that out. And again, a lot of different companies that do it. We're one of many. The key for us, though, is in combining the sales process. Like, let's define your sales process. Let's get it tricked out, make it very visual. Let's capture the best practices. I personally do not believe that you can buy a sales training program, we use XYZ method, or there's a book and we're using that book. Every company has a different nuance to their process. So we think you need to map yours out. And then once you know what the process is, let's figure out what kind of a salesperson you need. And then develop a tool to be able to assess that.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And that's right. You can't just buy something sales out of the box. It's got to be, and again, back to it, the thing I've learned over time is that you got to be authentic, right? If one of the things you're going to do in-house is they got to buy you and the company or product you're selling, but you've got to be authentic and you've got to be real. And where Jim's coming at this is our almighty DISC program and the DISC profiling and how we use that tool to not only assess internally how we communicate with others, but also to be more self-aware of who we are. And then we'll talk about how we use the DISC profile with customers in a minute. But back to that sales process. Once you have your sales process defined, and then you can start to identify which guys, or which traits, I should say, would work best in there. I think it's key, and knowing what's going to work and what's not going to work. One of the things I found is in the profile assessment that Jim helps me out with, I find that there are two things that come out of it: natural style and adapted style, right? And that if somebody is rooted in one box, they over time have not been successful for me. This isn't a predictor of success, but they're not willing to adapt their style to the other three quadrants based on the people they come up across. They didn't identify like, hey man, this person's an introverted and detail oriented, but I'm over here going, let's talk about Michigan versus Georgia. Let's talk about football. And I think you got to be more self-aware. So that's why I've loved the tool. So Jim, back to you on assessing the people and figuring it out. In a sales process of in-home sales, and let's just put a hypothetical out there of, I'm doing window sales, I'm doing roofing sales. You're saying an introverted person today may actually do better than an extroverted person?
I'm saying that if the customer is likely on the internet doing some pre-research before they engage you, they're already wanting to buy when you finally get the lead. So if they click on the button and with a contact me and put it in there, they've done some research. They've been banging around the internet like a chimpanzee trying to, see what's going on. But they saw something on your website that they liked. You answered some of the good questions. Matter of fact, I'll give you another book that I just absolutely love. It's They Ask, You Answer.
Big fan. Marcus Sheridan.
Yes. Yeah. And basically, there's some research out there about how far down the sales process customers are. Again, I'm old, so when I was younger, in the sales process, they had these things, and I did business to business first for quite a few, for almost 2 decades. And in business to business, they had these things called the blue book. Now, in business to consumer, they had what's called the yellow pages. And so people would go, but there wasn't a lot of information in the yellow pages. And the blue book was literally just a massive yellow pages. So they would call you, and they were calling looking for basic information. That doesn't happen anymore. You've already done the research. So when they call in, they're basically ready to buy. So when you get out on site, when you go meet with them, the key element is being able to answer those last few questions, which is typically the compliant style, somebody that's very detail oriented and maybe a little more introverted than extroverted. That's that compliant study. They're really good at answering those questions. But here's the problem. I said it at the top of the hour. Everyone has strengths, but every strength has a corresponding challenge. So if you're super outgoing, trust me, you struggle closing. And here's why. If you're outgoing, you have a fear of being disliked. That's why you're so darn outgoing. Here's the problem. You won't ask for the order because you don't want rejection. But now let's go back to that person who has all the answers, that compliant. They struggle to close because you sell. This is a general statement that's a truism. You sell the way you buy. So if you tend to take a long time to buy something, detail-oriented people tend to do that, then they won't ask for the order quick enough.
I love what you said there, because this is a big one. You think those extroverted guys are going to be just absolute natural salespeople, but Jim hit on one of the biggest insecurity of some of those big extroverts who are the guys who are the life of the party. They can't stand the no. And in sales, you're going to get more no's than yeses, and it sucks, but it happens, and you have to get over it. And that was hard for me too, because I was like, man, I'm a likable guy. I'm a good, what you just said no to me. And so I had to learn, you know what? Some will, some won't. So what? Here we go. But that's something you have to, when you identify who you've got, you got to help coach them up. And so as I moved into the sales management position, hiring people, and then realizing I was screwing everything up, and Jim came in and helped me. Today, you're always going back to these guys. And I had another meeting again with my sales guys this morning saying, we happen to be in the holiday season. Get them to a yes quick, because they're in a hurry and they don't want to be worried with this because they're so anxious, as we've talked about. But in that longer decision profile that you just talked about with the compliant, you have to probably ask a few or answer a few more questions to get that sale. And that's stuff that it's gold nuggets to figure out how to train that, because I was a horrible sales manager, still probably really am, which is why I put another guy in place, because he's driving them and helping them with us. But I love that you talk about that, because you think the extroverted guy, he's just going to sell everything. And now you found out, and that's what Jim's dropping the secret. He hates no.
Every one of the quadrants has their strengths and weaknesses. So I imagine the compliant is great at all the details and answering questions, but they're probably not very good at overcoming objections. Is that a fair statement?
Right. And they'll basically abdicate the sale back to the customer, kind of like, well, you bring up a good point. Here's the answer, but, just let me know what you come up with. So they leave without the order. The highly extroverted person, by and large, will overcommit at some point in time because they want to be liked. Again, that fear of being disliked is a monster that just reels its head. Now, because over 60% of the people we've assessed have that tendency, we spend a lot of time there. And what we find is, what you fear is ultimately what you get. So if you fear rejection, then you probably won't ask for the order fast enough or hard enough or again. And as a result, ultimately, you're going to get rejection. It's called unemployment. Because if you don't, no, seriously, stop and think about it. If you don't ask for you're not getting any rejection because they didn't say no, just don't ask. But if you never ask, you're never going to sell. If you never sell, you're going to get the massive rejection. So back again, what you fear is ultimately what you're going to reap. And so part of our process in the sales process is to help them understand, especially if you're extroverted. And I'm massively extroverted. It's like, that's great. Here's the deal. You're going to struggle to ask for the business and to overcome the objection. So we're really going to hyper focus on that. I do not need to spend a lot of time teaching you how to bond and build rapport with somebody, because you're a machine at that.
Right. That's too easy.
Yeah. And the other thing is, by and large, if you're a high influencer, very extroverted, very people oriented, you tend to overcommit. So when the customer says, hey, when can you get me this complicated proposal now that I want to make these changes? The typical line of the influencer is, oh, how's tonight? Tonight good for you? Like, influencers never have dinner with their spouse. They don't even know what their children's names are because they're so busy digging themselves out of a hole at midnight trying to put together an adjusted proposal. And frankly, as soon as they're walking back into the office where the people are that might help them with that, everybody runs for cover because they know it's going to be, oh, the customer needs this. Well, who committed to that?
Right.
So Jim's job is to teach people to be successful in spite of themselves.
I think you might have a new tagline for Jim at Sales Octane is, we'll help you be successful in spite of yourself.
But here's the thing. You mentioned the authenticity word, and I love the authentic word. See, here's the deal. I believe, after looking at all the data, that if you could take a behavior style assessment, now this is not IQ, it's not EQ, it's just how you behave. If you could have taken that test the day you were born, your natural style would be the same as it is right now. So my style at my age is the same style as when I was born. So one of the things I tell people is, you were created this way, and that guy does not make mistakes. So here's what we want to do. We want to leverage your strengths, but make no mistake, we're going to walk through what some of those challenges are. And if you're self-aware enough to understand that, that's me, then we can make it's just technique, because it's behavior, and you can behave differently for hour and a half, but you can't behave differently for 7 years. Again, that's why 5-year sales cycle, 7-year sales cycle, they're not going to stick with it.
So let's talk a little bit about a best way to help them with their behavior training, because what we're talking about here is that you've got to make people not only self-aware, but I always preach to them, be authentic. So the other thing that we have a problem with, because I have a problem with it, is role play in the office. Because I'm just not a good role player. And I
love role play.
Do you?
Yeah, because you can make it way worse than it'll actually be in real life.
So I just can't do it. My son can be an actor. I just couldn't. So I feel goofy about it, and I just can't get it done. So if I don't role play, what are some other ways to show these guys the right way to do things, or in a somewhat protected environment?
Frankly, this is the beauty of 2021 December, and that, in 2008, the first mobile device came out. And that mobile device right now is the best training device known to man, because it's got a camera. You can videotape yourself, and you can do it with no one in the room. So one of the things that we've been coaching on is, okay, let's say you put together your sales process. And again, when we put together the process, very high level, but here are the steps in the process. Then we do some deep dives into the areas where we think are going to be the biggest payoff. So it might be asking for the order. It could be overcoming objection. Let's do that one. Overcoming objections, because that's real common for role play. So Billy's sitting there, in a khaki pants and, ready to go. And the president goes, the president who's been selling since Noah walked the earth and is really good at it, says, so, when the customer says your price is too high, respond to the objection. And, literally Billy soils themselves on the spot, because, it's in front of the president. How can you do that? What a great way to kill your salespeople. Why wouldn't the president go in a room and spit out that objection response in terms of how they respond to the price objection? Better yet, why don't you make a video of yourself, President, responding to that objection, and then give that video to the salesperson. Better yet, with technology, you can transcribe that thing for about 10 cents using artificial intelligence and give them the script. So now here's the talking point. Here's me doing it. And then you just assign them, have your spouse, friend, significant other sit on the other side of your mobile device, start the record, and then have the spouse say, well, oh, is that the price? Wow, that price is too high. And then you wax eloquent into the video. And here's the thing, that's the way new neurons are formed. That's how you learn stuff. It's not a one-off, it's practice. But I don't want you as a salesperson to practice on my customers. Because if I'm spending $250 a lead and I give you a lead and you're going to go practice on the customer, that's crazy. Why wouldn't you have them practice on a video device? Because here's what happens. They're never going to make that video in one take. Never in your life. So what they'll do is they'll start the recording and they'll botch it, but they'll get a minute into it. And then they go, oh, shoot, I shouldn't have done that. And they'll do it again and they'll do it again. That's called repetition. By the way, where are you, President? You're on the beach in Nassau, having given them this expectation of sending a video. They do it over and over and over again. Now, as soon as they get a video that's done, what do you think they say under their breath?
Glad that's done.
Exactly. That's always, they're like, thank goodness that's done. Trust me, it's not. And here's why. 2 facts. You will watch yourself on video and listen to yourself, and you come to 2 conclusions fast. Is that the way I look? And number 2, is that my voice? And the answer is yes. It's called law of familiarity. You like your face that you see in the mirror every morning because it's familiar. You've been looking at it. If you're 40 years old, you've been looking at that for 38 years. So you like it because it's familiar. Trust me, that is not you. That is a reverse image of you. So when you watch yourself on video, you actually watch what we see. And you'll go, oh my gosh, is that the way, I never smile. Well, do it again. And what's cool is they're going to practice that language, President, that objection response, that closing approach, that sales pitch, that 30-second commercial. They're going to practice that probably 20 to 30 times. And that is the way that new neural pathways in your brain are formed. And in the end, you're going to end up with a whole video series of your people, because you're going to do like an Academy Award once a year. And, here's the 2 best responses to this objection. Now you've got something that lives beyond you. Other people can practice. I've been telling managers, I don't know if anybody's taken me up on this yet, but to me, this is like patently obvious. Why would you ever hire somebody unless you ask them to make a video of themselves doing one of your key steps?
So I've not taken you up on that. Thank you for calling me out again. Thank you.
And I don't even remember who I pitched it to, but I'm like,
you pitched that to
genius.
Me, and the other
genius.
It is.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Here's I've told Alan this often, is that I'm doing this podcast because I want to give back. I want to give back to people that to know just how successful I am. Okay, no, really, I'm lying. I want to show them how many freaking mistakes I've made, and don't make those. Here's another one. Jim told me about this video process over a year ago, and then he reinforced it with me about 6 months ago. I still haven't implemented it, and I'm writing down again. I'm really doing this podcast for me to improve my business, because I'm going to make my guys do that video over the holidays, because they, we aren't going to have a lot of calls. It's getting into that slower season for in-home sales, but they're going to do that video because I've been producing videos for them on how to do things and different marketing techniques that we have. But I'm going to have them do a video back to me, and I'm going to tell Whoever gets it gets the peacock headdress of the week.
And think about this as a coaching tool. And I can't overstate how much of this work is being done by the employee with no effort from you. They're going to practice their lines. They're going to become self-aware of how they look and how they sound. I mean, one of the things that's real common with this process is people go, I didn't realize how often I said, So the first step in our process is to have you show me around the area that you want us to fix. And then well, here's the deal. You're annoying the heck out of me because I watch it and I'm like, how am I gonna train this person to stop saying just have them make a video and say, hey, here's the lines, make me a video. We're gonna have all 5 of you do it. There's a $50 Starbucks card for the best of the 5. And literally what I would do for your sale, you never get a second chance at a first impression. So maybe it's, what do they say on the front porch to get the sales process started?
Yep. Yeah, that's a great line because you only get one chance for the first impression. And so we always do the knock back, come back one step, present the image of a professional home repair specialist, because in the handyman space, we're also known as being pretty shoddy. Show that up. And then it's that greeting where you speak up, you let them know who you are so they can introduce themselves back to you. We talk about that. And then you got to dive into, I'm here to solve your problem. So let's go do that. And I think that's going to be one of the first videos is, give me your opening line.
Right. And the funny thing is, I was doing a project earlier today with a client. We had like 8 of us on the phone. And the way we do with the sales process is we just do it via Zoom because it's fast. And we're walking through that. And one of the folks, one of the reps, made a statement that was like, whoa, that is a great line. Now, I didn't think of the line. President didn't think of the line. But when it came out, it was like, that's a really good line. So let's all adopt that line. And so what'll be cool is you get, how many guys do you have right now? How many?
I've currently got 15 technicians.
Okay, great. So you're going to get 15 videos back. And the cool thing is you'll get 1 or 2 or 3 that are really good. That becomes the new standard for the other 13. And by and large, it's a great coaching tool because number 15 out of 15, you'll have a conversation, but it's not you beating them up. It's like, hey, let's take a look at your video. Like you swore 7 times on the video. That's not our brand, and we'd like you to clean it up. It's like, really and you're like, no, it's, that's not acceptable. So it's a great, tool to use when coaching.
Jim, I absolutely love what you're saying. And when I was in the corporate world, I stumbled on this the hard way, because one of the things I enjoyed the most was getting my guys, and I say guys, meaning guys and girls, promoted to national positions. And that interview was a very scary thing. And I had one guy who was deadly effective in the field. He was a great leader. He made money fall out of the sky. He could not get one of these promotions. And finally, I realized, he comes across a little goofy. He's got some strange mannerisms. He's got facial tics that he thinks makes him look smarter, but it really doesn't. We know him, and his clients know him, his customer base know him, his employee knows him. And so they just sort of excuse it. But to somebody who's thinking about making a hiring decision, they have to get over that. And so I actually said, hey, let me role play, because he was like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, let's role play and video it.
Yes.
And we watched it together, and you could see the light come on in his face, like, oh, that doesn't look good. And he got the next job.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's good that you even had the foresight to go ahead and film it.
It took me a while to get there, but
yeah, I haven't done that. All right.
I didn't have Jim in my back pocket.
Right. I love it. So Jim, you do a lot of that work with franchises and independents. You talked about that before. tell me the difference when you're working with independents versus franchises. What are you finding different that you are attacking most with each one?
Okay, with an independent, by and large, they never have a process. Whereas with a franchise, there's almost always some level of a process. I mean, it might just be, oh, this is our 10-step process. That's great, but how do you break the 10 steps into something that is now trainable? So it's a little faster run with franchises because I've got something to start with, and then I just poke a few holes in it, and then we start to create videos. Uh, with franchises, by and large, this is not always the case, but by and large, people who buy franchises actually had at one point in time thought about starting their own business, but they just felt safer with something that's been around for a while and has multiple locations. So what that tells you a little bit is the fear. So they're probably more compliant and more detail oriented, not as dominant, not as risk taking. So on the franchise side, by and large, I'm really having to train sales because by and large, they come from an operational background. On the independent side, the risk taker, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to start it from scratch. They're typically better at selling, but there's very little follow-up. So they're selling stuff that doesn't even exist. And then they expect, yeah, we'll have it for you by Friday. What's it going to look like? I don't really have a clue. It's
Yes, he knows it was me. Yes, I was very good at sales. Shitty
with the independent.
My butt off.
So with the independents, while it's still we're training process, we're putting the system in place. By and large, with the independents, it's a lot of let's just make sure that we don't overcommit and then underperform. And again, you could get away with this pre-2005, 2006. You could get away with it. But now what happens in Vegas no longer stays in Vegas. It's called Google reviews. It's called, social media. And so I love this. I mean, I really, truly believe this is going to be a great time for great people and great companies. Because if you're a great person and you're a great company and you do what you say you're going to do, and you treat your customers with respect, it's going to be all over the place and everybody's going to know about you and you're going to dominate. On the other hand, if you're really kind of cutting the edge, a little slick, I think you're dead in the new world order. So be good.
For goodness sake, I agree.
Hey, that's a perfect pivot for this time of year.
Right. So when you work with companies, I'm going to just sit there and say I agree with that because I'm not going to say anything better than Jim just said. When you're working with companies in the phases of growth, one of the things I talk about is that you kind of go up the slope. Everybody thinks you just grow linear, you go up the net profit, you're making millions of dollars and everything just keeps going. But the truth of the matter is you have to grow. And as you grow through growing pains. How often are you involved with people where they're trying to grow and their sales process is holding them back? Or is it they just want to kind of dust it up a little bit and get it dusted off and cleaned up? Where are they in the life cycle of them business from starting to growing big?
We have better success with emerging, like relatively new, like not a lot of detail orientation. If you've been at it for a long time, yeah, the dusting off is typically around, the assessments and things of that nature, maybe a technique or two here or there. But we're having a whole lot of success capturing companies that are newer in the process, like new franchise brands, emerging franchise brands. We can walk in. I mean, I've got 125 sales training videos that are generic. And then we only have to fill in maybe 5 or 6 steps in the process with customized language. So again, I find that our best hit is with somebody that's newer in the process, or maybe you're the independent person, you started your company, but you've been the primary source of sales and it's time to add people, boy, then you better have a sales process defined, or you're going to go through a lot of people. And right now, with the market the way it is, you just can't afford to burn through folks.
I can't agree enough with that. And that's why I thought that was going to be your answer, but I was going to be interested to see if there's yet another step to have on later. But whether, if you're emerging, I think defining emerging could be new in the business, but it's a franchise process. But it also could be that independent who is new because he's been the only one selling for 2 or 3 years, AKA Chris back in the day. And he keeps trying to bring guys on and they keep failing miserably. And he needed that too, because he had no sales process. I didn't have a good job description. I thought I did, but I didn't. I didn't know how to manage them because I didn't know how to get them there. I just kept saying, you should be closing 50% of what you see, just like I do, because the business is going to close. I mean, just by showing up, you're going to win too. Yeah, well, that's no way to sell. Back to, I've already written down my favorite lines of today. One is neuter, and I have a good way of neutering my sales guys. And then chimpanzee, which is what I think sometimes these guys run around doing, is run around without any really direction.
Jim, in your typical scenario, what's the most effective approach when you're looking at coaching? I mean, are you working with a client once a month, or do you just go in and do a big session and you see the same people quarterly, annually? What do you recommend?
Good question. We want the manager, or we want, whoever is accountable for that salesperson, we want to equip them to coach the salesperson. So they've got, they're the ones that are there all the time. So one of the things they get with the assessment is it also tells you how to manage and motivate the person. So when they take the assessment, it will tell you, the manager, how to manage them, how to motivate them, how to talk to them, how to communicate with them, and it tells them how to sell. So we equip the manager with, here's the process, and now let's start catching your salespeople doing things right. This is one of the ahas that I've had over the last 5 years. We get, five times the rejection, the negatives, than we do to the positives. You have to start giving more positives. Find them doing something right. The videos will be a great opportunity to tell them, I like the way you did that. Boy, I like that line. Boy, you look really, I like just your persona at that point. Great job. Wait, boom, boom, boom. So we teach the managers, and I'll give them to you right now. The question should be this. You don't watch the video and go, oh, Bill, what happened there? Sally, why do you always do that with your tongue? I mean, it's like, it looks like you got some kind of a mental issue there. That's not what you want to do. You want to watch the video. And even though it's like, there it is, just ask the question. So what did you like about your video? By the way, they will always begin with something they didn't like.
Right.
You have to extinguish them and say, no. What did you like? And then encourage them on the things that you agree with that they did well. And keep asking, what else? What until they go, that's about it. And then ask them this question. Okay, well, what, if anything, if you had to do it over again? Because you will, it's a video and I'm going to make you do it over again. But what, if anything, if you had to do it over again, what, if anything, would you want to improve? And pray that they pick it up. I always lick my lips, when I'm getting ready to close. And I say all the time. Now don't jump. That's the key. Step 3, when they are self-aware enough, by watching their video and hearing themselves, and they self-diagnose their mistake, do not jump on it. Don't go, oh yes, I'm so glad you finally figured that out. So what in the world are we going to do to fix that?
Write that down.
You killed them.
Catch them doing something right.
What you need to understand is, do they really understand why it's annoying or uncomfortable? So just say something like, really, Why do you say that? You see, I think we need to go slow. Encourage, 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 encourage. 5x, 5 times the encouragement. And when they extinguish an encouragement, just say, no, 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 no. You did a great job. Just accept it. And then you walk away. And they'll glow. That way, when you get to the video and there's that issue, and you go, so what did you like about it? Well, I tell you what I don't like. No, 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 no. No, what did you like? Well, I pivoted pretty fast to the close. Yeah, I did. I liked it. I like the way that you made the segue to the close. That was perfect. You got to keep doing it. What else? Well, I felt like, given the alternate choice seemed to, exactly perfect. That's exactly what we're training. And boom, you just kind of rock through it. And then it's, what if anything, if you had to do it over again, like what if anything?
Slow down, ask them what they did right, catch them doing something right. All things that sales guys will thrive on, and all things that sales managers need to learn more about doing, because we're always usually in a hurry because we only get to see them like once a week in our sales meeting. We don't have time. So I think that's great feedback. Well, Jim, we're coming to the end of our segment here, and really have enjoyed this. You're dropping some great knowledge for all of us, great gold nuggets, but I can't let you leave without asking our 3 questions. The first one, what is your favorite feature of your house?
We built a outdoor fireplace about 8 years ago with sandstone. Like, I bought slabs of sandstone that was native to where I live. And then somebody came over and literally chiseled the bricks. And it's amazing. It's where we go as a family, grandkids. We just kind of sit out there, make a fire, s'mores, hot dogs. That's probably, there's a lot to like about our home. That's one of our favorite spots. So
I love that. All right. And because I said I love that, Ed, you can put that down. That was, I love that, number 72 for this episode. All right. Jim, obviously very passionate about customer service and how customer service salespeople can do things. What is one of your customer service pet peeves?
When a salesperson tells me they're going to do something and they don't do it. I'll call you back tomorrow. I can't tell you how many times with things that we've had done around the home, and they're like, well, I'll get that to you tomorrow. And a lot of times what I notice, because this is my job, I'm like, you're an influencer. I like you. We're getting along really well. You're probably going to overcommit at some point. And it almost always happens. Don't do that, gang. Just stop.
Just stop. Just say no. All right. The last one is, give me your worst or funniest DIY or contractor nightmare story.
I'll have to do the DIY. We've moved 7 times. And one of the houses, I decided to hang drywall on a ceiling on the lower level. And I'll never, it was like a Sunday or Saturday night. Kids had to do all their baths. We had 3 daughters, all little at the time. My wife's upstairs drawing the water, getting them in there. I'm hanging, it was the last sheet of drywall. I had my little T-brace, and I'm not that great at home improvement. Put it up there, and I'm putting the drywall screws into the 2x4s. And one of the last screws just was a little harder to go in, but it went in, and I was getting the next screw on the end of the drill bit when all of a sudden I'm starting to feel hot water dripping on my head. I had actually put a drywall screw into the hot water line, which, if you think about it, it's like unbelievable. But I tell you what, this was not good.
Right. Force that one bitch in.
Right. No, it was not a good thing, but I was really happy with my response. At 11 p.m., I thought to go to the hardware store because I had a hole in the water line that I didn't want. What do you do on a Saturday night at 11 p.m.? You buy a water tap for your, like a refrigerator water source. So I went to the hardware store at 11 p.m., one of the big boxes, and I'm in there and I have a hole in a water line. I need to plug the hole. What can I do? Well, you have to sweat the joint. Yeah, that's not happening, Bucky. What's another option? Well, you got a hole. Why don't we sell you this? And so to this day, in that house, if they ever tear the ceiling out, they'll go, why is there a water tap line right here in the middle of the of the basement.
I love
And it still works. I mean, I'm sure it's fine.
yeah. I actually probably would have skirted it further and silicone the shit out of it. But that's
an option.
yeah. So well, brute force and ignorance. That's how I'm best at that one. Jim, before we let you go, how can people get a hold of you? And what is the best way to find you out there in this wild world of the internet?
It's funny. I did this years ago and I love this. I'm on airplanes all the time. Pre-COVID, I was always on a different plane every week. I bought the web domain ijustmetjim.com. So you can go to salesoctane.com and that's how you find me. But so when people on a plane would be like, wow, this is really great. You know, how do I get a hold of you? I'm like, I'm Jim. Yeah. You just met me. Yeah. Just go there. ijustmetjim.com.
Is that still going?
What?
Is that still out there?
Oh yeah. It's perfect.
Gotta hit it. ijustmetjim.com right now.
Yeah. So go there. You can
podcast, everybody.
That'll be fun.
That's hilarious. But salesoctane.com, best way to get you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jim, I want to thank you for coming on. As always, you dropped an incredible amount of knowledge for everybody. And if you can't take something away that Jim just brought to you today, you just weren't listening. So with that, go get up that mountaintop of success and get up there and make it happen.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Small Business Safari. Don't forget to go out and rate, review, and follow me. And if you like this episode, go out and check out my other episodes, or check out my Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn for other great content. And remember, your positive attitude will help you achieve your higher altitude in the wild world of small business ownership. Until next time, make it a great day, Adventure Team.